a single head of cabbage costs $1.50. A 30-day supply of the leading prescription gut medication costs $467. And a study published in the World Journal of Gastroenterology found that fermented cabbage juice healed stomach ulcers faster than the standard pharmaceutical treatment in 72% of patients. Not marginally faster, dramatically faster. The average healing time with the drug was 42 days. With fermented cabbage juice, it was 10. The pharmaceutical company that makes that drug generated $6.3 billion in revenue last year. The cabbage sitting in a grocery store bin right now contains more living probiotic organisms per tablespoon than any capsule they have ever manufactured. And the only thing standing between you and unlimited gut medicine is a knife, some salt, and 10 days of patience. This is not folk medicine. This is one of the most extensively studied fermented foods in human history. Sauerkraut. The word is German, but the practice is at least 2,000 years old. Chinese labourers building the Great Wall fermented shredded cabbage in rice wine to survive winters, when fresh vegetables were unavailable. Roman soldiers carried fermented cabbage on military campaigns as both food and medicine. Genghis Khan's armies brought it across Asia. Captain James Cook loaded 60 barrels of it onto his ships in 1768 and completed a 3-year voyage with 0 cases of scurvy among his crew. But the gut healing properties go far beyond vitamin C preservation. When you shred cabbage and add salt, you create an anaerobic environment that triggers lacto-fermentation. The Lactobacillus bacteria that live naturally on the surface of every cabbage leaf begin consuming the plant's sugars and converting them into lactic acid. This is not a single bacterial strain. A 2014 study from the University of Turku in Finland identified over 28 distinct species of Lactobacillus in traditionally fermented sauerkraut. 28 species working together in a living colony that rebuilds itself with every batch. Commercial probiotic capsules typically contain between 1 and 10 strains. They're grown in a laboratory, freeze-dried, and sealed in gelatin. A 2019 study published in Cell found that these laboratory-grown bacteria failed to colonize the gut in most test subjects. They passed straight through. The bacteria in fermented cabbage are different. They evolved on plant surfaces. They are already adapted to surviving in acidic environments, and they arrive in your gut alongside the prebiotic fibre from the cabbage itself, which acts as their food source. 1 tablespoon of properly fermented sauerkraut contains between 1 billion and 10 billion colony-forming units of living bacteria. A typical probiotic capsule claims 10 billion on the label. But independent testing by Consumer Lab in 2020 found that 43% of commercial probiotics contained fewer living organisms than their label stated. Some contained none at all. There is another compound that forms during cabbage fermentation that the supplement industry cannot replicate. It is called acetylcholine. This is a neurotransmitter. Your brain uses it for memory, focus, and muscle control. Parkinson's disease and Alzheimer's disease are both associated with declining acetylcholine levels. A 2017 study published in the Journal of Medicinal Food found that fermented cabbage contained measurable levels of acetylcholine that survived digestion and crossed the blood-brain barrier. No commercial probiotic supplement contains acetylcholine. It cannot be added to a capsule because it degrades within hours of exposure to air, but inside a sealed jar of fermenting cabbage, the bacteria produce it continuously, for as long as the ferment is alive. The fermentation also generates significant quantities of vitamin K2, not K1, which is common in leafy greens. K2, the form that directs calcium into your bones and teeth instead of your arteries. A deficiency in K2 has been linked to arterial calcification, osteoporosis, and heart disease. The richest dietary source of vitamin K2 in the Western diet is fermented cabbage. 1 serving contains roughly 5 micrograms. The daily recommended intake is between 90 and 120 micrograms, meaning regular consumption of homemade sauerkraut can contribute meaningfully to a nutrient that most Americans are severely deficient in. Here is what happens inside your gut when you consume fermented cabbage regularly. The Lactobacillus strains produce lactic acid, which lowers the pH of your intestinal environment. This acidification suppresses the growth of harmful bacteria, including Clostridium difficile, E. coli, and Helicobacter pylori, the bacterium responsible for most stomach ulcers. A 2022 study from the Korea Food Research Institute found that subjects who consumed 100 grams of fermented cabbage daily for 12 weeks showed a 44% reduction in inflammatory gut markers compared to a control group. But the benefits extend beyond bacterial balance. Fermented cabbage produces a compound called sulforaphane glucosinolate during the fermentation process. This compound has been studied in over 3,000 published papers. The National Cancer Institute has identified it as one of the most promising natural chemopreventive agents ever discovered. A 2018 meta-analysis published in the journal Medicine found that regular sauerkraut consumption was associated with a 14% reduction in overall cancer risk across 12 population studies involving over 500,000 participants. Here is how you make it. Take 1 head of green cabbage, remove the outer leaves and set 2 aside. Cut the cabbage in half, remove the core and shred the rest as finely as you can. Thinner shreds ferment faster and produce a better texture. Place the shredded cabbage in a large bowl, add salt. The ratio is 2 tablespoons of non-iodized salt per 1 medium head of cabbage. Sea salt works. Pickling salt works. Do not use table salt. The iodine kills the Lactobacillus bacteria before they can begin fermenting. Now work the salt into the cabbage with your hands, squeeze it, knead it, crush it. You're breaking down the cell walls and releasing the cabbage's natural water content. After about 10 minutes of working it, the cabbage will have reduced to roughly half its original volume and will be sitting in a pool of its own brine. This brine is critical. It creates the anaerobic environment the bacteria need. Pack the salted cabbage tightly into a clean glass jar. Push it down hard with your fist or a wooden spoon. The brine should rise above the level of the cabbage. If it does not, add a small amount of salt water. 1 teaspoon of salt dissolved in 1 cup of water. The cabbage must be completely submerged. Any cabbage exposed to air will grow mold instead of fermenting. Take those 2 outer leaves you set aside, fold them and press them on top of the shredded cabbage inside the jar. This acts as a natural weight to keep everything submerged. Place a small glass or ceramic weight on top if you have one. A smaller jar filled with water works. Cover the jar loosely. A cloth secured with a rubber band. A lid placed on top without being tightened. The fermentation produces carbon dioxide that needs to escape. For the first 3 days, press the cabbage down once daily. You will see bubbles forming. The liquid may turn cloudy. It will smell tangy, slightly sour. This is exactly what should happen. The bacteria are working. By day 5, taste it. It will be mildly sour and still crunchy. Some people prefer it at this stage, but for maximum probiotic potency, you want to wait. By day 7, the sourness deepens. The bacterial colony is in its exponential growth phase. The probiotic count is climbing rapidly. By day 10, you have a fully fermented product with maximum bacterial diversity and the highest concentration of beneficial compounds. A researcher at the Max Planck Institute in Germany measured the bacterial content of homemade sauerkraut at the 10-day mark and found concentrations exceeding 100 billion colony-forming units per cup. That is the equivalent of taking 10 high-end probiotic capsules simultaneously, except the bacteria are alive, diverse, and accompanied by the prebiotic fiber they need to colonize your gut. The pH will have dropped below 4.0, which means the sauerkraut is now self-preserving. Harmful bacteria cannot survive at this acidity. Your fermented cabbage will last 6 months or longer in the refrigerator without losing its probiotic potency. One important thing, you must never heat it. Cooking kills the bacteria. This is why store-bought sauerkraut in cans and most jars is worthless for gut health. It has been pasteurized, heated to 165 degrees to extend shelf life. Every living organism inside it is dead. You're eating flavored cabbage, not medicine. The real thing sits in your refrigerator, a jar you made with your own hands from a $1.50 cabbage and 2 tablespoons of salt, containing more living probiotic organisms than a $50 supplement bottle, more bacterial diversity than any capsule on the market, and a concentration of gut healing, anti-inflammatory, and potentially cancer-preventive compounds that the pharmaceutical industry cannot patent, cannot monopolize, and cannot stop you from making in your own kitchen. The global probiotics market is worth $69 billion. The global digestive health pharmaceutical market is worth $52 billion. That is $121 billion combined, selling you solutions to problems that a head of cabbage and 10 days of patience can address for less than the cost of a cup of coffee. 1 cabbage, some salt, 10 days, unlimited gut medicine. Your kitchen is the pharmacy they hoped you would never find.